All right, we're going to take a journey, a big one, all the way back 1400 years into the past. We're going to explore the story of Islam, a story that starts with just one person and grows into a faith for billions.
So, how does that even happen? How does a message that started in a remote desert cave end up reaching every corner of the globe? Well, to answer that, we have to start right where it all began. We need to understand the world it was born into, the person who first heard it, and the incredible struggles that defined its earliest days.
To really get the message, you first have to get the world it arrived in. Our story kicks off on the Arabian Peninsula, a place of really deep traditions and some pretty harsh realities.
So, I want you to picture a vast, unforgiving desert. Life here was all about your tribe, these big, extended family groups where loyalty was absolutely everything. But right in the middle of this landscape was a city called Mecca. Now, Mecca was a powerhouse, not because of its armies, but because it was a crossroads for trade and, crucially, for religion. And at its very heart was the Kaaba, a sacred cube-shaped building that had become home to over 300 different idols, which drew pilgrims from all over the region.
This was a society of some pretty deep contradictions. On one hand, you had these amazing values. People celebrated bravery, they had this rich tradition of poetry, and hospitality was a huge deal. But on the other hand, it was a world totally fractured by constant tribal warfare, a lot of social injustice, and, the worship of all these countless idols left a lot of people searching for something with deeper meaning.
And it's into this complex, buzzing, and often brutal world that a child was born, around the year 570 CE. His name was Muhammad, and his life was about to change the course of history.
His life, it didn't start easy, at all. His father died before he was even born, and his mother passed away when he was just a little kid. First his grandfather, and then his uncle raised him, and through that, he learned the value of hard work and responsibility. As he grew up, he became known all over Mecca for his incredible honesty, earning him the nickname Al-Amin, which means the trustworthy. And it was this reputation that led him to work for a highly respected businesswoman named Khadija, managing her trade caravans. They later married.
But even with a good family life, Muhammad was deeply, deeply troubled by the world he saw around him, all the injustice, the inequality, the endless idol worship. It just didn't sit right with him. So he started seeking solitude, leaving the noise of the city behind to go think and pray in a small cave on a mountain called Hira. Then, one night, when he was 40 years old, everything changed. In that cave, he had this powerful, completely overwhelming experience. According to Islamic tradition, the angel Gabriel appeared to him and delivered the very first words of a divine message. And the core of that message? It was simple, but it was revolutionary for that time and place. There is only one God. Imagine how terrifying and confusing that must have been. He rushed home to his wife, Khadija, and instead of doubting him or thinking he was crazy, she comforted him. She reminded him of who he was, of his character. Her unwavering belief was absolutely crucial. She became the very first person to accept the message, and really, his most important supporter through it all.
So the message was simple: worship one God, be just, and take care of the poor. But in a place like Mecca, this simple idea was a direct challenge to the entire social, economic, and religious power structure. It was a huge deal.
At first, the message was shared very quietly, just within a small, trusted circle. But as Muhammad began to speak more openly, the reactions just got more and more intense. Yeah, a few people were curious, but many, especially the powerful leaders of his own tribe, the Quraysh, they reacted with mockery and then outright hostility. They saw this new faith as a direct threat to their authority and, let's be honest, to the profitable pilgrimage business that was built around all those idols. In the opposition, it turned violent really fast. The most vulnerable people in this new little community, the poor, the enslaved, they faced just brutal persecution for their beliefs. A really famous example is a man named Bilal, an enslaved African man who was tortured under the blazing desert sun but absolutely refused to renounce his faith in one God. The hardship just kept piling on. Some of his followers had to flee to Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia, just to be safe. The Quraysh put a devastating 3-year boycott on Muhammad's entire clan, cutting them off from food and trade, causing immense suffering. Then came a period that's known as the Year of Sadness, when he lost both his beloved wife Khadija and his protective uncle Abu Talib in the same year. And yet somehow, despite all this unimaginable loss and rejection, the small community held on. So after more than a decade of this struggle in Mecca, a real turning point came from a pretty unexpected place, a city to the north called Yathrib. See, visitors from Yathrib, a city that was torn apart by its own internal tribal conflicts, heard Muhammad's message of unity, and they invited him to come and be their leader. This invitation led to what's known as the Hijra, the migration of the entire Muslim community from Mecca to Yathrib. Now, this wasn't just them escaping danger, this was the foundation of something brand new. The city was renamed Medina, and it marks the birth of the very first community state built on the principles of Islam.
And to build this new society, one of the very first things they did was establish the Constitution of Medina. And you have to understand, this was a groundbreaking document for its time. It created a framework where everyone could live together peacefully. It laid out the rights and responsibilities for every single person in the city, Muslims, the Jewish tribes, everyone else, uniting them all under this banner of mutual protection. It was pretty revolutionary.
But even with their new home in Medina, the conflict with Mecca was far from over. Eventually, though, a crucial peace treaty opened the door for the message to spread more freely than ever before, and that led to a period of really rapid growth.
A few years later, when allies of Mecca broke that treaty, Muhammad marched on the city with thousands of followers. But here's the amazing part. Instead of seeking revenge for years of persecution, he offered a general forgiveness. He entered Mecca peacefully, and the idols inside the Kaaba were finally removed, restoring it to the worship of the one God. 2 years after that, he delivered his farewell sermon, and shortly after returning to Medina, at the age of 63, he passed away.
And in that final sermon, he basically summarized the core ethics of his entire message: that all people are equal, that no race or tribe is better than another, that justice is essential, that the rights of women must be respected, and that economic exploitation is forbidden. These ideas became the moral bedrock for the civilization that would come next.
And from that one man in a cave, from that small persecuted group in Mecca, and from that fledgling society in Medina, the message just grew. Today, it's followed by more than 1.8 billion people from literally every corner of the globe.
Ultimately, the story of early Islam is just this powerful testament to how a single idea, carried through unbelievable hardship with patience and conviction, can inspire generations and completely reshape the world. It really shows you the lasting impact of faith and the incredible power of building a community from the ground up. It leaves you a lot to think about, doesn't it?